It is race week. Yes, in just 6 days' time, I will be racing Outlaw Nottingham Half, my first half Ironman of the year. I am incredibly excited, but because it's race week, that also means it's taper week, which means I'm not really doing very much today. So I thought for the first race week video, I would take a look back at all of my training that's led up to this point, and we can talk through what went well, what hasn't gone well, and then wrap up the video with how I'm feeling coming into this pretty massive race. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, a medical student and triathlete in London. If you enjoy these videos or just enjoy triathlon in general, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe to see more videos as we get ready for my first race, my first proper race, my first A race of the year in Outlaw Nottingham Half. Now, I'm going to be looking down at my laptop, but let's switch over and have a look at Training Peaks so we can see how my training has gone this year. Although we're not looking at December at the moment, we're going to start looking in January, but in December I did take significantly more time off than I have done in the previous years. I was pretty stressed with final year of medical school, slightly overtrained. I needed some time off, so I took a couple of weeks pretty much entirely off, which is something that I haven't really done before. So coming into January, I'm not that fit compared to what I have been in the past. And so it was a good opportunity to kind of build up and do a lot of new things in my training. And I think the thing that I noticed looking back in January is that I really struggled with consistency compared to some of my previous pre-season training. I think because I'd taken slightly longer off than I maybe had done in the past, it took longer for me to get back in. So we'll have a quick flick through January. At this time, I was still in placement. I was still going to hospital almost every day. And so lots of these are bike rides where I'm commuting kind of 20 or 30 minutes of actual cycling, but more because cycling in London is incredibly inefficient. And that made up a fair bit of volume. So I'm only really training kind of twice a day and not really getting in the 3 times a day training that I do later on, which we'll come on to. But still, first week of January, still a pretty good amount of training, 17 hours with just under 900 TSS, but we're definitely going to start building on here. Second week of January, I was a little bit under the weather, so I knocked off some easy running, building up slowly another hour and another kind of 50 or 60 TSS. However, we wouldn't continue to build up that well, so as you can see, this drops back down again to 14 hours, and I'm missing a few workouts that I would have otherwise done, and going, significantly less time on some of these workouts, especially like a long base ride, which is really important at this time of the year, and a Sunday long run. But then last week of Jan, back up to 18 hours of training with 940 TSS. Overall, really good. Just a couple of workouts missing again, and some like the Zone 3 ride, for instance, here in the top left on Monday, not done to the full potential because I was trying to balance with commuting to and from GP at the time here, but also just revision and general stress and not really being used to a full training schedule, having taken a few weeks off. But that happens, that's part of life. And overall, I think January could have been a lot worse. It obviously could have been better. And I think I'll come on to touch where I think I'm lacking when we look towards the race. But I think January is pretty good. I think February was a really, really good month actually of training. I still was commuting a lot, so an hour a day roughly of these ride times are made up of commuting, so kind of bear that in mind. There it will be 4 to 5 hours of commute time in each one of these training weeks, but even then I think it's a pretty mega amount of training that I was able to do. We come into the first week of Feb and we're already kind of up to 21.5 hours with 1100 TSS, with some really good quality workouts in here actually. I'm doing some strength work, although I did miss the second strength session this week, and I think the strength work was really good in February. Swimming really well in February as well, and hitting a lot of my key bike workouts, which is something that I haven't necessarily done in the past. So this is where I think I built a lot of my kind of bike prowess, which hopefully will show through in the race. Unfortunately, we were a little bit unwell in the second week of February, which was a rest week anyway. Not a terrible time to have a bit of illness, but it did mean that we took a day off on Monday. We didn't get very much done on Thursday, and no training was done on Thursday, and we missed a swim on Friday. And all the sessions were a lot less than maybe we'd wanted this week, so it ended up being 14 hours, just under 15 hours with just under 800 TSS, so not terrible, but it's the one bad week in February, I think. The week after, we hit it again really nicely, again with a fair number of commutes, but just under 20 hours of training, a really good sweet spot and brick workout on the Saturday. I remember really kind of being quite nervous for these, having done it over-unders on the bike the day before, but for this one we had, I think it's 3x20 or 3x30 in zone 3, 3x30 at 250 watts, so yeah, pretty much middle of zone 3 for me, and I remember feeling really good. And then with a kind of tempo brick run off the bike, it was my first one of the year, and so thankfully that felt good. That was a really good thing, but didn't mean that I was knackered the next day, so didn't do the quality in the Sunday long run. I just did the easy part of it, but you know, we take those. Again, another big week afterwards, 22 hours of training with some really good swimming in this week, and a nice long kind of easy ride at the weekend, and actually did nail that Sunday long run with some tempo quality in there, as well as some zone 5 intervals, you know, and a far too big track session. I didn't actually run track that night. I went and ran with a friend. I don't remember exactly what we did, but it was pretty mega. For me, running 4:45 average with some stoppage in there, I believe. And then a little bit of an easier week. 17 hours would have been bigger, but I missed a bit of running. My swimming, I think I had a slight shoulder problem this week. At the end of at the end of Feb, and so I didn't really do this swim on the Thursday, and yeah, there was just less like volume, but there was still a lot of quality here. I actually did some testing in this week, so I did an FDP test, we did a swim test, and some tempo running and stuff, just to kind of see where I was at fitness wise. I think that was pretty good, but not an amazing week of training, but still 17 hours. And the week after, again, really stressed with uni on this day, so everything was kind of a bit topsy-turvy here, unfortunately. And then we get into exam period. So for me, this was probably the hardest part of my training. This week was pretty disrupted preparing for exams, so you know, first week of March was pretty disrupted preparing for exams, and then the second and third weeks of March were where I really struggled to keep consistency and any volume, and the actual intensity of my, you know, specific interval sessions were less than optimal, which is fine. You know, life stress is there, but it's just something to think about. How can I prepare better for those and make my workouts fit better around life stresses? I think I definitely could have done a better job at planning this period, but still 15 hours of training in the first week of exams, where I had my first 2 exams for my written papers, but the quality, although there was a decent quantity, like I said, the quality and the intensity of the sessions wasn't always hit, unfortunately. And then the kind of third week of Feb was really rough because I had 3 days of clinical exams. And so I didn't complete a lot of the workouts that I was supposed to, simply because I was so exhausted, and both physically and mentally from exams. I just kind of knocked a lot of it off. The stuff that I did wasn't as good quality as I would have hoped. But saying that, I still got a fair bit of workout done, and it left me feeling pretty fresh for the Basildon Aquathon, which I think I made a video about, where I did a 400 meter PB and I ran a pretty decent 5k, 20 minutes and 32 seconds. Doesn't sound phenomenal, but the conditions that day, with what was pretty much a cross-country loop for about 2/3 of each lap, was pretty brutal. So I'm not that displeased with those results. But as we look kind of past that and we come into the last week of March, I was really able to pick up perfectly from being pretty fresh, having not trained that much during my exam period and having some time off for a few weeks and going on training camp, which we'll talk about in a minute, meant I could hit some pretty solid weeks of training. So although it's definitely been up and down up to this point, it's more ups from this point onwards, which hopefully will leave me in a good position. So as we look to the end of March, the last week of March, another 20.5-hour week with some really good quality, missing a few kind of amounts of volume on some of the sessions, but really pleased, especially with some of the running that was done this week. Can't complain with that. I remember having a really good track session this week and a really good 7x4 minutes run session on Friday. As we come into April, again, 21 hours of training done in the first week of April, still missing some sessions, and I wish that consistency had been a bit better during this time, but I'm not overall too displeased with the actual quality of the sessions that I was able to do. And then we come to the second week of April, which was the last week before going away on camp. Monday through Thursday was really good this week. I hit pretty much everything I wanted to do, although lots of these are yellow or orange. I'm not too displeased because I was pretty ambitious with the amount of training that I had set myself. And then the only kind of downside of this was Friday, where I was just pretty wiped and I didn't prepare well enough for going on camp. So I had to spend a lot of Friday disassembling the bike and doing all my packing and stuff before heading off to camp pretty early on Saturday. All the workouts are great for the camp because I didn't really plan anything, but I did some swimming in this, but we didn't put it under training peaks because I don't like to swim open water with a watch. But massive kind of volume block in cycling and a bit of running on top of it as well. Not as much running as we could have done, but still 44k of running that week and then 7k the first day of camp. Really pleased, hit some amazing numbers, had an amazing time in Mallorca, absolutely no regrets, definitely a massive training stimulus. Took the Sunday after returning from camp off just because I was absolutely knackered from camp before coming back and hitting it really hard with another great week of training, 20 hours, 1100 TSS, and I kind of came back from camp learning a little bit more about my weaknesses. I was quite impressed with how I held up on the bike, but when it came to running, I'm quite a bit behind some of the other people that I'm going to camp with, and they're kind of the people that I want to be able to compare myself with. So coming back from camp, the big thing that I did was change my run training. So I'm swimming a fair bit less since coming back from camp and replacing that with running. So I'm doing more of a double threshold. I'm doing a bit more of a double threshold training plan, which started this week, but we didn't manage to do a double on the Thursday. But as you can see, on the Tuesday, we did a morning session, 6x4 minutes, running at threshold. And then in the evening, I replaced a true threshold session with a 5k speed session on the track with my local run club, which was brilliant. And I was definitely hitting threshold, lactate threshold, and pushing through it a fair bit with it was 6x3 minutes at 5k or faster pace. On the Thursday, I didn't really hit my threshold in the morning, so I knocked the following threshold to Friday afternoon. But that was still 4 really high quality run threshold sessions that I was really pleased with, having just started doing double threshold. And then I took the Sunday of this week, Sunday the 30th, a bit easier because on the 1st of May, bank holiday Monday, I raced Bucks Sprint Triathlon, which was incredible fun, incredibly hard, and taught me a lot. I did make a full video about that, so I won't touch on it too much here, but go and watch that one once you finish this one if you're interested. The day after bucks sprint triathlon, I didn't really take a rest because it was only a sprint. I didn't give it my all, and we were I was in the mind where I was really just wanting to kind of crack on with the final preparations for Nottingham because it was getting pretty close at that point. So although I didn't do a double threshold on Tuesday, I did one really big threshold session of 5x2K at threshold in the evening, which was mega, absolutely massive session. Really kind of went to the well on that run. I'm really pleased with that. And I was able to hit another day of double threshold on Thursday. This time, first time executed perfectly. So we did 3 by 10 minutes threshold in the morning, and then 15 by 400 meters in the evening, with pretty short rests between those. Both of those were pretty tough sessions, but really enjoyable, and I'm really pleased with those. And the bike workouts were really good in this week. And on Saturday, which I think was 2 weeks before the Nottingham Outlaw Half race, myself and one of my friends did a kind of race specific or race simulation brick session. So we did 3 by 30 minutes in TT position. This was done without a power meter to feel, because I don't have a power meter on my new TT bike yet. But I felt incredibly good in that, although a lot of kind of tightness in the shoulders. That's kind of getting used to the TT position. Honestly, I felt more pain in my shoulders than I did my legs. And then straight off the bike, we ran into 3 by 4K, which is what I did. And that was absolutely brutal again. But I was able to pretty much hit between threshold and high tempo, which for me is kind of my half marathon race pace throughout the whole 3 by 4K. Really pleased with that again. Felt pretty stable, really excited, and really, this was a real confidence building brick session for me. Now we come on to last week, second week of May, and at this point I'm slowly starting to reduce the amount of volume that I'm doing. Although we're still doing 19 hours, there's a fair bit less intensity. We had a great fun ride on Monday. We did a bun run, 4.5 hours there and back from East London. I think it's pretty impressive, and lots of that was spent in TT position, putting out a fair bit of watts. Absolutely great fun, really enjoyed it. I'll put some videos and stuff from that, but that was amazing. Had a great track session and did a double threshold on the Thursday as well. We did 5 by 6 minutes in the morning and 10 by 3 minutes in the evening. And although I missed my kind of easy ride on Thursday and my run on Friday, I think that was probably for the best, because I would have overcooked myself massively, and I wouldn't have been able to recover for that properly in the taper. And then we come to Monday, where I had a nice easy ride this morning. I'm going to get out. As you can see, the sun is shining in just a little bit for a nice easy run as we look to taper. Overall, I think it's been an incredibly successful build-up period for my first half Ironman of the year. The only thing that I really could want to change would just be being a bit more consistent. I had some absolutely massive weeks, and then some weeks were not small by any means. Training 14 or 15 hours a week isn't nothing, but if I could have made those closer to my 20 or 22 hour training weeks, I think I would have gained a lot more benefit from those weeks. I'm incredibly excited for Outlaw Nottingham Half. Now, I'll be bringing you along for all the taper as we look to have, hopefully, my best ever half Ironman result at the weekend. So make sure you like this video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to see how I get on this week in the taper and how race day treats me on Sunday at the weekend. If you've got any questions about my training or anything you think I should be doing slightly differently, leave those down in the comments. But for now, I'll say thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.